It has been determined by this court. Mr. Stewart, you are the father.
Hey, I told you, baby. I told you. I ain't got no reason to lie.
It has been determined by this court. The biological father is Mr. Theodore Pearson.
Can I see my daughter, Your Honor?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Tolliver, you are her father.
Okay.
Ms. Muller has had an extremely painful childhood, but she turned it all around. She joined the military, got married, and is now living happily ever after. However, something is missing. She wants to know who her father is. She's now dragged the defendant, Mr. Robinson, to court to prove that he's her biological father. Mr. Robinson says he's always known that he's not her real father, but he pretended to be just to stop her from hurting.
Is standing here in court.
I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm annoyed. Your Honor, when I grew up, I had a rough childhood. I didn't really know either one of my parents very well. I basically raised myself, being raised by myself and the people that I was in foster care with. So I was a little troubled child, but as I grew older, I told myself I didn't want to be like that. So I graduated from high school with an honors diploma. I joined the Army. I went and served my country overseas. I came back. I'm in school now, on the dean's list, getting my bachelor's degree. I'll be done in a year. I'm married to a man who loves me and supports me fully. And I feel like I'm proud of myself.
But despite accomplishing all of this, Ms. Muller still feels hurt because she feels she doesn't have a genuine family to share her happiness with.
Your Honor, when I was getting deployed to Iraq, I wanted my family there. I took the time out to call Mr. Robinson, asked him to be there for me. You know, I'm getting ready to deploy. Can you come up to the unit? His answer was, I'm busy. And he lived in the same city, 10 minutes away.
And so you have not had the support
Never.
of the man you believe is your biological father.
That must have stung like crazy. Mr. Robinson says he's always been there for Ms. Muller, even with his doubts that he isn't truly her father. But Ms. Muller disagrees vehemently. She says when she needed a place to stay or money to get her place, Mr. Robinson turned her down. In any case, what are even the doubts Mr. Robinson has about the paternity of Ms. Muller here?
Understand, why do you have doubt? Were you having sex with her mother during the window of conception?
Yes, I was, but...
Okay, now, do you have any notion, idea, belief, or proof that her mother was also having sex with anyone else?
Well, she had a lot of men friends. When I come around, they always walk away, y'all. It gave me doubts because they walk away.
Did you ever question her and say, hey, are you cheating on me? Are you having any other relationships?
I did, Your Honor.
And what was the answer?
She always said, no, those are my friends.
Those are just her...
Well, it seems Mr. Robinson here doesn't have a very good leg to stand on if he's trying to prove that Ms. Muller isn't his biological daughter. He simply doesn't have good reasons to doubt that this child isn't his. Ms. Muller's mother, Ms. Cobbs, is in court today, and she also has a fair bit to say.
It'd be time for them to go.
He's a bald-faced lie. If you come up in your house and see another man up in there, and you gonna be that calm? When I'm committed, I'm committed. I don't do no outside dipping and dapping. For us him talking about being a father to her, no, he haven't.
Mr. Robinson has been a model father. Well, according to him anyway. He says he signed Miss Muller's birth certificate and even took her to live with him when she was 9 years old. But through all of this, his doubt remained. Ms. Cobb says that his doubt is completely unfounded and a figment of his imagination. She says he signed the birth certificate and named the child after himself. If he didn't think she was his child, would he really do that?
Sure.
I was trying to do the right thing, Your Honor. I was in love with her. And I would have, if she'd have told me to take off my shoes and walk to New York bare feet, I would have done it because I was that much in love with her.
And so, in your mind, you wanted this relationship to continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Even though
Yes,
you
ma'am.
had doubts, you didn't voice them because the truth is you didn't want to lose Miss Cobb. Did
Yes,
you
Your
ever
Honor.
say, I have doubts?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's a lie.
What did you say to her?
I think she was messing around.
Now you say I was, now you're thinking? Which one is I was, I wasn't?
Anyway, it's time to see the DNA test and know for sure who's lying and who's not. Let's get to it.
Mr. Robinson, you are her father.
What? Bam! Bam!
Ms. Gray says Mr. Pearson is tearing her family apart by refusing to acknowledge her 10-month-old daughter, Kamaya, as his. She says he accepts the paternity of her 2 older children, but somehow thinks that Kamaya's dad is a member of his own family.
What are your hopes for today, really?
I just want him to be a part of her life. Granted, I would love to have my family all together because that's what I really came here for. I just want him to treat her the way he treats the other ones. He treats them way more better than he treats her. He buys them things. He don't buy her nothing.
Is that true, Mr. Pearson?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
It is true.
Yes, it is.
And that's because of the doubt you say.
Why would Mr. Pearson even doubt that this pretty baby is his? He must have some good reasons. And well, it turns out he does.
Kamaya is your child.
She slept with my cousin, Your Honor.
What?
Exactly what?
Mr. Pearson's cousin, Alexander Pearson, slept with Ms. Gray twice. That's insane. Ms. Gray admits that this happened, but she says it was revenge for Mr. Pearson sleeping with his cousin's ex-girlfriend and having a baby with her. She also says she only slept with him after she was pregnant by Mr. Pearson. But Mr. Pearson says this is a lie, and for good reason.
With each other. But I look at it as if you did it once, you did it then, you've done it before, you've done it, you'll do it again. I'm a man. I know what it's like. We as men, we can be dogs.
Well, all right, say that.
You know, and that's the truth.
I'm going to
The truth is the
accept
truth.
that into evidence as
This means Mr. Pearson believes that Alexander Pearson is the father of Kamaya. Of course, Mr. Alexander knows this too, and when he saw Kamaya, he said it's a huge possibility that she's his child because of the resemblance they both have. But there are 2 problems with that theory. The first is that both men are cousins, so it wouldn't be horribly out of place for Kamaya to look like Alexander Pearson. Secondly, the child was barely a week old when Mr. Alexander made this judgment. Did he see that resemblance when the child was barely a week old? Let's hear from Mr. Alexander Pearson himself.
to the family.
At first, no, she was like, she's pregnant. And I was like, well, do you know who it is? And she was like, it's your cousin Theo. But when the baby was born, me and my cousin saw the baby and we had our own judgment as he thought, since he already knew about me sleeping with his baby mama, he thought, well, that I could be the father. And I thought that maybe I could be the father too, because look at the baby. And so I asked her, I said, do you know if I'm the father or not? And she said, well, if it's anybody's, it's between you and your cousin.
That's interesting. Ms. Gray insists that Mr. Alexander Pearson isn't the father, but at the same time, she told him to get a paternity test. Doesn't that mean that she believes that there's a tiny chance that he could be the father? To make it worse, Mr. Alexander Pearson has counted back the dates from the last time he slept with Ms. Gray, and he insists that he could be the father of Kamaya. Or he could be trying to complete his revenge on Mr. Pearson by having a baby by his baby mother, the same way Mr. Pearson had a baby by Alexander's ex-girlfriend. Who knows?
Saying something don't add up here.
Mr.
And
Pearson.
my whole thing was, if it's happened once, like she said, it's happened several times. If they build that relationship then, how could it not have been built beforehand?
He was just sex. It was revengeful.
No, it is no just sex.
It was a revenge. There's no relationship.
Every time I've laid down with a woman, I've had to build some sort of relationship with her.
That's you.
Correct?
You
Correct,
can have
officer?
sex with somebody and not show no type of feeling.
Oh well, let's get the DNA test results and see who is the father of Kamaya. Is it Mr. Pearson or Mr. Alexander Pearson?
It has been determined by this court. The biological father is Mr. Theodore Pearson.
Can I see my daughter, Your Honor?
Mr. Tolliver is here with his girlfriend today, and he's the defendant in this case. He's 100% certain that Ms. Allen's daughter Novella isn't his, and he's in court to prove it. He says he even has very strong evidence that will help him prove his claim.
What can you prove?
I've tried to get her to do a DNA test. For instance, just the other day, says she's not going to do the test.
Really?
Okay, that may sound interesting, but it's not proof of anything. There are loads of reasons Ms. Allen might not want to carry out a DNA test. And maybe one of those reasons is that Novella belongs to another man. But that alone is hardly a smoking gun.
He's the reason why. I honestly do not want to go take a test by myself with him. And he don't want to be around my family.
Wait a minute, now you laid down by yourself with him? Now you can't go and get a DNA test by yourself? I've never heard of such.
I just don't feel comfortable around him.
But you don't have to be present at the same time to get the DNA testing done.
She texted.
That's a great point, Judge Lake. Is there another reason behind Miss Allen's refusal to get a DNA test? Or is it just regular stubbornness from her? Anyway, Ms. Bowl, Mr. Tolliver's girlfriend, says that Ms. Allen often sent Mr. Tolliver needy texts saying she misses him and wants to be with him. Mr. Tolliver adds that Ms. Allen is always coming back to him whenever she breaks up with her boyfriend or has an issue with him.
I want to make sure I understand. You two were in a sexual relationship at some point,
yes.
am I correct?
Yes.
Was it during the window of time that Novella was conceived?
Yes, ma'am.
How long were you together?
It's in a couple of months, not long. It wasn't a heavy, steady relationship. We weren't.
So you weren't committed?
Yeah, we was committed.
We seen each other on the weekends every now and again. It's
No.
not like we lived in different.
Well, there you have it, folks. If you live in a different country from someone, you cannot be in a serious relationship with them or even get them pregnant. Them's just the rules. Well, according to Mr. Tolliver, anyway. Of course, Mr. Da Rules Tolliver made sure not to use protection with Mrs. Allen every time he slept with her. But as you know, that cannot result in a pregnancy. Because he and Ms. Allen lived in different counties. Them's just the rules.
Told me
Did
that,
you use protection?
No, ma'am. But she told me that the day before that her ex-boyfriend she just broke up with, they had intercourse that night. The night
No, I
before.
did not tell you that.
Okay, that's what you said.
No.
Okay, so the day you met her, she says, I had intercourse with my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend last night, and then you had intercourse with her that night.
Yes, we were having drinks and talking, and I don't want to hear about that. You know, I don't want to hear who you had sex with, but I mean, you know, alcohol does that. Alcohol opens people up. That's what she told me. And I mean, the first night we met, you know, we had sex.
Seems like Mr. Tolliver here is a real charmer. However, he doesn't quite believe in his charms because he says he isn't the only one Ms. Allen has given it up for on the first night. But what all of this means is that Mr. Tolliver had unprotected intercourse with Ms. Allen during the window of conception, and he could be one of the fathers. For some reason, Mr. Tolliver can't seem to grasp that tiny fact easily.
And it's on the Facebook.
What are these pictures of, Mr. Tolliver?
That's Miss Allen with the guy she was seeing at the time that she's telling me that.
So this is her in the hospital having birth, and that's the man there on the phone in the corner.
Her boyfriend, or she's telling me that that's going to be Novella's father.
When did she tell you this?
Right after the pregnancy.
So you weren't there on this day, the day she delivered?
No, ma'am.
Hey guys, if you want your baby's father to be involved in their life, the one thing you should probably do is invite them to the delivery room when you give birth. If you don't invite them, and then send them a text message saying another man will be the baby's daddy, don't be surprised if they never step up and you find yourself on paternity court years later. Again, dem's just the rules. Mr. Tolliver, of course, now has very predictable ideas about this man that Ms. Allen got with after she met him.
So let me ask you this. Do you believe that this gentleman is potentially Novella's biological father, or do you feel like this is just someone she's using to get back at you?
I don't know. It just seems to me like that's a very good chance that he is the father.
When you got pregnant, were you dating anyone else at the time?
No.
Did you call Mr. Tolliver and tell him you were pregnant?
Yes, I did.
What was his response?
I called him when I was in the doctor's office, told him I was pregnant, and his basic response was it was not his problem. It was.
Oh well, Mr. Tolliver has been set on not being the father of Novella from the very beginning. And this story about not going to the delivery of the child just seems to be an excuse. Anyway, let's end this and see who the real father of Novella is.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Tolliver, you are her father.
Okay.
Are you happy?
A little bit, yes, ma'am.
Just a little happy.
Well, I mean, I've always wanted a kid, but the other thing is that, I mean, now I want Rachel to understand this. I'm going to be in the baby's life, but, you know, I know you said you're over me, but We're done with the going back and forth, okay?
It's going to be a bit hard to know who's telling the truth here. Mr. Meyer says that Ms. Fisher here is a serial cheater who was sleeping with numerous men during their relationship. And as such, he's sure he isn't the father of her second child, Xavier. Ms. Fisher, on the other hand, argues that Mr. Meyer abandoned her and the kids after she had his second child and is now refusing to take responsibility for that child.
Here for the second time, again in court.
I'm here for the second time, Your Honor, because I feel like still that Ace is not my child. I feel like that it's impossible to get a DNA for a child that's unborn just from a swab of the mother. I guess that's the only way I'm still acting the way I am toward him.
Well, you don't get the DNA of the child that's born just...
Good story, but Mr. Meyer says he has an even better one that will put this story to bed once and for all.
Because I want to understand why you don't believe the results. So I ordered a new paternity test just for you. So you believe that the mother was swabbed and it's impossible.
Well, that sounds really sad, Mr. Meyer, but that cannot mean that you aren't Xavier's father. You've got to do better than that. Give us some proof, some argument, anything that isn't circumstantial. But before we get to that, Mr. Meyer has some other pressing issues he'd like to address.
All he did was just cry, and there was just no
That's
connection.
what a baby does. They cry when they first born.
There was just no connection. Even when I look at Ace, I still see, I don't see me.
So what part of this situation relates to the fact that you don't believe the prenatal testing results?
Now he think Mr. Haynes, my fiance, is...
Wow, that's just, wow. Wow. What? Anyway, Ms. Fisher says if Mr. Meyer was serious about the two kids not being his, why didn't he take a DNA test after they were born? Why did he wait years later? And that's a great question.
When I was in the hospital when she gave birth to Ace, she had put my name on the birth certificate. Removed my name off the birth certificate just to put Mr.
Reason
Haynes'
of that
name
being
on
is
the birth certificate.
I asked
So
him.
wait a minute now. She took your name off the birth certificate?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you put Mr. Haynes' name on
The
Ace's
same
birth
day
certificate?
after I left out of the hospital.
What? What's going on here? Why was Mr. Meter crying? Does he not have any strong evidence that shows that Ms. Fisher cheated on him? What's happening? Let's give Mr. Meyer another try to make his case.
Like, they give you a piece of paper in the hospital, and you have to fill your information out on that.
And so what is this you submitted to the court?
That's just the birth certificate that the hospital gave me that I could take home. And
Oh, that's
on
the
the
thing
back of
that comes-
that's what he signed. So in the record, he has no father. It's nobody's name on his birth certificate, really.
But if you've already determined...
Well, breaking news, guys. If someone crawls out your window or if someone tells you someone crawled out of your window, then it's proof that your wife is cheating on you and both of your kids aren't yours. Right? Of course not. Mr. Meyer doesn't have any evidence to prove his wife cheated on him, and it's little wonder the DNA test results confirm what we all knew from the beginning.
In the case of Mason versus Malone, when it comes to 5-month-old Ace Marcus Mason, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Mason, you are the father. Again.
So, that's your son. You need to just start taking care of your son.
And I'm
Start
going
bonding
the
with your
same-
son.
The same way I do with the other two.
Ms. Dallas says that the defendant, Mr. Stewart, is the father of her newborn son, Lamar, and is shocked that he's denying being the child's father. She says what's even more shocking is the fact that she just discovered that he's leading a double life. Mr. Stewart claims that Ms. Dallas has been far from faithful, and baby Lamar has a lot of other potential fathers.
Casually.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we always had to get a room, and I used to ask him, like, I'm tired of going to the room, can we go to your house? You said you have a house, you own it. And he was like, I have unwanted company there. So I'm like, unwanted company? I'm like, you got a girlfriend? He like, no. I'm like, you have a baby mom there? He like, no. I'm like, you got a wife? And he was like...
Oh, so Mr. Stewart is the originally unfaithful one. This sounds interesting. Let's hear what our man, Mr. Stewart, has to say about that.
Wait, you were basically out acting like a single man.
No, I wouldn't act. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Sorry about that.
I'm glad you just went on ahead and
Your
told
Honor.
the truth.
I had to think about it.
Okay, so you were out there acting like a single man, but you were married.
Yes, Your Honor.
Were you getting a divorce then?
I wasn't in, I didn't have it filed, but in my head, yeah, I was getting a divorce.
In your head. That means you...
Mr. Stewart is married and was cheating on his wife with Miss Dallas, and then presumably got her pregnant. And now is on paternity court to sort out the paternity of the baby involved. This is what happens when you cheat on your wife.
Ms. Dallas, once you found out he was married, did you have second thoughts about dating a married man?
Yes, I did have second thoughts, but once everything started hitting the floor, like, I was already pregnant. You know what I'm saying? I love Cedric, you know, and he was telling me, like, I'm gonna do the divorce, we're gonna have a house, you know, all this, we're gonna raise our son together, you know. I was believing him because that's all I had to do was believe him, you know?
So he had you high off the promises and drunk off the dream.
That's great. Mr. Stewart has some pretty strong reasons why he believes that this child Lamar isn't his. Let's see if they hold any water.
Like, when he got here, he don't look like me. Look at his hair, he look mixed.
He don't look mixed.
Look mixed.
All babies come out with
You look
fine
mixed,
hair,
baby.
and I'm pretty sure
So
everyone that got
at
children
what
knows that.
point do you have to come clean with your wife about this baby?
I told her.
Picture of the
Because
strip.
when me and
I still
Cedric were
got the
supposed to
pictures.
be together, Roberta sent me a picture of him and Cedric in the bed. Now Cedric has my name tattooed on him. She sent me a picture. She sent me a picture of him and her in the bed naked together.
This just gets messier and messier and messier. And it's about to get even messier because Mrs. Stewart is also in court and she has a fair bit she wants to say. And oh, Mr. Stewart here has no kids with his wife, but has 3 kids with previous relationships. And yes, he's been married to Mrs. Stewart for 10 years. Just a heads up.
Miss Stewart, you're claiming that what you've presented to the court are messages which indicate she was not just entertaining your husband, but multiple men.
Yes.
That's not true.
Well, I definitely see plenty of interaction between Miss Dallas and various men.
Those inboxes are what they send me. You don't see nothing of me sending nothing back to them. I can't help when nobody send me on Facebook or whatever they asking me.
So, Miss Stewart, you believe that Miss Dallas was having sex with multiple men.
Exactly.
In addition to your husband.
Okay then, now we've got some hard evidence to talk about. Let's see what Miss Dallas says about this.
Were you intimate with anyone else around the time baby Lamar was conceived?
No.
Anybody else?
No.
Well, then the case is settled. It's time to see who's been lying and who's been telling the truth. What does the DNA test say?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Stewart, you are the father.
Hey, I told you, baby. I told you. I ain't got no reason to lie.